A lot of the roadsides have taken flack since COVID, but the one along Eagle Lake at least seems pretty well kept when I drive in and out. So that's appreciated for anybody who is taking care of the areas in front of their properties and so forth. Treasurer's report. We are solvent. This is in 2022. Significant donations are reported on the expenditures for ELPOI milfoil seed money in the town of Crown Point. Account's still there for possible use in future projects. Motion to continue donations. Motion made, seconded. All in favor. Motion to approve treasurer's report was approved. Number of members and places around the lake and classification such approximately 85. Gooseneck Water System decommissioning. Ralph mentioned that ELPOI has done and is willing to pass along information about the Gooseneck Water System issue. Jack elaborated on the importance of members' privacy and how we take their information and keep it private and not share information with anyone else without permission. Jack spoke of the association's official position of involvement in the Gooseneck water situation and the fact that we do it as a courtesy to ELPOI members. It's not in our mission. Cost discussed for the project, what the current plan was to get water from the street road well to the problems with that water. The town said that there will not be a district due to cost. The state controller not allowing it, but this could still change. Inspection and difficulty of such, and latest lack of plan for that. Rolf elaborated on the fire protection challenges in the Eagle Lake area. Jack related his talk with politicians and the challenge that is. Jack mentioned that only thing owners hear is town water when they purchase a house and not the details of the situation. And Ralph elaborated again on how elected officials see us. Fish stocking, Zach mentioned that there were 26, we were not part of the stocking that year, 2022, last year, but 2,960 brown trout, 2,810 from two different hatcheries in excess were stocked in June of last year, and past stockings were in late July. Rock bass were healthy, crappie population getting better, and a 40-inch northern pike was seen last year. Water quality and testing. Water quality testing and difficulty of such for testing facilities for fecal test. Ralph elaborated that two types of tests are done, the C-SLAP and the fecal tests, and we will be having a report on those for this year coming up. Beaver issues. Dave's been taking care of beavers. He's going to give us a presentation on that today, but from the notes from last year, he spoke of the work done, past history, difficulty of finding a trapper and the cost, recent trap installations and need for more volunteers to keep an eye on it, and the VSA form that needs to be filled out if you do anything like that, and submitted to Chris to remove the debris in the dam area. We appreciate volunteers, of course, but you do need the VSA form filled out to do that in that area. Jack spoke of how the lake level is maintained and why. Jack mentioned the water gauge and gauges around the lake. Ralph spoke of the rain gauge in his camp and future gauge documentation on the lake for rain, weather, etc. in the next couple of months. Older business. Old business about folks that have passed away over the past year mentioned in the newsletter. Ralph spoke of the idea of making donations in their name in the in-memory page on the website with the help of Leland Luce. Causeway replacement. I gave causeway replacement project update and details myself. Hammond UMP update. Jack discussed the Hammond Pond UMP and the boat launch and beach issues and classification of the UMP passed in 1972. Jack discussed the 5-year study in lake usage and the idea that a 1,000-acre rule may not be cast in stone as originally intended. Diane Tiedemann mentioned lake data usage collected through CSAP participation. Jack spoke of emergency services. Diane Tiedemann also related total lack of understanding about specific needs by the state. Chris Hyde also made mention of a new term used, unimproved launch, that may be applicable to us. And we've got a lot of information to portray to you about the boat launch situation coming as well. New York State Clean Drain Dry Law Jack spoke of New York State law that all boats and other items that need to have certification of clean, drain, dry, certification when putting boats into different bodies of water, and a self-certification option available. The need to keep certificate on you was explained, and other questions and answers from the New York State DEC website. Rolf related more of the practical impacts of this new rule and how it would affect us here at the lake. Miscellaneous information, question of defoliation of Skiff Mountain was brought up, and Rolf informed us of the issue with gypsy moths and information about that issue. Loon census for next weekend was mentioned. Dave's going to give a presentation about what was found last year and when it's being done this year. Rolf offered to pass along pertinent information that members are willing to share. And next year's meeting will be either the 4th or the 8th, and it turns out it's the 8th. Motion to adjourn and so forth was at 12:03 p.m. So that should do it. Motion to approve.
Yes.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Last year's notes are approved. Officer nominations and elections. Board members serving until 2025 are the current board members we have now: Dave Cerny, Cole Hickland, and Jack Mulcahy. I'm willing to stay on as president. Chris is willing to stay on as vice president. Rolf is treasurer, and we have an open secretary position. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer helping out with secretarial duties? We could greatly use that. Ed has sold his place, or I think it's on the market. I'm not sure if he's sold it yet or not, but he won't be able to do the secretary position in the year going forward. There's still some notes that need to be written up about a couple of board meetings. But if anybody can donate any time to doing that, see me or see anyone on the board, and we can bring you up to date exactly what that involves. But we are currently looking for a secretary.
There is an opening. If you want, you can nominate whoever isn't here, and they can't decline.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Hey! Maybe next year they'll come to the meeting.
Yeah, because
I'll nominate you.
I'm going to be here to say I can't do it. I can't speak English.
So, okay. Next up will be the treasurer's report. That from Rolf.
Make motion to accept the officers?
Oh yes, motion to accept officers and that are up for election. Myself, Chris, and Rolf for this year. Motion. All approved? Okay, we're all set with that. Thanks for that reminder. Yes, if anybody gets thinking about secretarial duties, let me know. Because we're actively looking. And I'll put it over to Rolf now for the treasurer's report for this year.
There's the treasurer's report, and I'll just leave a few there. Chris, if you want to. I'll hand out this table. There's also a green flyer that goes along with it to support our sponsors that have all offered to re-up this year. Pass them down if you would. These are our sponsors, so if you would. Steve, if you need more treasurer's reports, there's a few more left here. You need one? At the treasurer's report, very top of the page, there is obviously the what the document is. But right in the middle there, it says line number, and there are some numbers directly below that. First one being number 2, 3, 4. I'm going to ask you to flip to the second page, which is the bottom of the report, which is where I usually like to start, because just to say that we are solvent, we are working within our budget. And if you go down towards the bottom 2/3 of the page there, you'll see the line number 1. We currently have $21,088 in our bank account. And if you look across on that same line where number 1, number 11 is, you'll see what our bank account has done over the last few years. It has slowly incremented up because we have been living within our means, even with the expense associated with beavers and everything else. We hope to be able to continue that, and we've asked that in the newsletter that just went out, whether you would support a increase in dues to $35, because we find that we have some expenses that are not included on here that we do have to cover going forward. So we're looking at the amount of money that we really have. If we turn the page back to the beginning, we'll see where that money came from and where we actually spent money on. So if you go to line number 2, under receipts, we had this past year 58 members that paid in. Last year there was 57, so we were up. If you go back to 2021, we were at 56. So the numbers of members that we have year to year to year has been reasonably stable. The high point was a couple, 3-4 years ago, where we had a high of 63. And going back from there, we have records, but I can't tell you what they are because they don't show up on my spreadsheet that necessarily allows me to fill this thing out every year. Possibly about 85 properties around, so we can have, there's still a few people that don't pay their dues for whatever reason, which is fine. But if anybody wants to know approximately how many properties, and it's kind of tough to count properties because there are several people that have multiple properties, i.e. a right-of-way that is a separate deed, that if they wanted to pay dues for that separate deeded property, they could, and have 2 votes at the meeting. It depends upon, so that's kind of where we are there. When we look at the proposed budget for next year, when it says plan, how did I come up with the number $1,700? Since we're looking at raising dues to 35, typically about 50 members pay in every year, so that's where I got that $1,700 number from. But this year we had $1,400 in actual income. Thank you to all those that paid their dues. I heard from a couple people today that our dues renewal letters may not have made it out as a paper copy. Not sure why. We sent out 100 copies. We got 5 or 6 of them back for addresses that we kind of know are not valid, but we don't have a better place to send mailings to. So if you did not get a paper mailing for dues renewal, by all means, please let me know. We'll see what we can do to figure it out. We did not get a chance to email that letter out. Time constraints were just such that I did not get a chance to put that in an email. Going down line number 2, Sylvamo was very nice to us this year, gave us a $750 donation. The difference between a donation and a grant is that the donation came directly out of their operating budget as a result of Donna Wadsworth's interest in supporting Eagle Lake. It was just a matter of her writing a check to us, which was kind of really intriguing that was able to be done. Thanks to Ed Leahy for getting that started for us. We also had 2 people this year that gave us more money than what I would consider just a normal donation of $25 additional dollars. One person gave us a check for $100 and another person gave us a check for $1,000, which made us solvent as we are this year. So thank you to those people that made those additional donations. And in the future, the way I usually handle donations is over $100 and over, I will send a separate thank you letter to that person acknowledging the fact that we did receive that check, only because I think that's a courteous thing to do. Under $100, it's kind of like, well, yeah, your check is cash. We do appreciate that, but from that standpoint. Brings us down to picnic income. We had 39 people attend last year and brought in $390. And we have 5 people showing ads for sponsorships. One of those is comped, but there's $345 that we bring in from those. And again, thank you to those that are sponsors. The green paper shows those people that have put a sponsor ad on our website. You get a little thumbnail at the top that rotates through depending upon what page you're looking at. If you click on that thumbnail image at the top of the business card, it brings you to a sponsors page, and that's where the images that are on that page comes from, so that you get a little bit more information about the sponsor. If you click on one of those, if they have an off-site website, it takes you to their website specifically. And since I see a dean sitting here, she has sent us an updated image for the sponsor and has offered to once again be a sponsor next year. So that's on my list to do to make sure. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Chris, also. Thank you to the Paddocks for being longtime sponsors. And as we mentioned that, several of the sponsors have been doing that since 2013. So we're talking 10 years at $100 a piece for that time frame. So thank you. Looking down at line number 3, then we get how much money we've deposited into our checking account. Moving forward on line 4, disbursements, where did the money go to? We had picnic expenses that are listed there. We give gifts to local service organizations, and I'll come back to that in a second. Legal consultant, when the first notification of the boat launch closure came up, we all kind of looked at each other and said, where are we going? What do we know about this? How can we best fight that? And the comment was, we've used the law firm in Glens Falls, McPhillips and Cullum and whatever, but Ed Fitzgerald was the attorney that we used during the milfoil issue. Seemed to be a good person to reach out to. We spent some time on the phone with him, Chris and I, asked him, where do we go? What are we up against? And he goes, you could very quickly spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to me, and you may not get any further than what you are currently trying to do on your own, which is to write some background letters and get some information. So we did need to pay him for his consultant time. He has not walked away from us, and we have not necessarily walked away from him. If there's other avenues, obviously something we need to look at, but we did have to pay him for his services, so that's why there is that on there. And I think it was money well spent, because we did get a reasonably good amount of information as to what we might be able to do and how we might be able to move forward with some of that. We get down a little further, we have newsletter newsletter printing for dues. We send out 105 with return addresses in there, so it comes to about $250 or $255. Water testing through CSLAP, which is the official one through New York State, and then CNA, which is the independent one that we do on our own. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more again, only because we have a methodology that we're going to try and do some in-house testing that may offset our costs for that. And again, a little bit more about that, so we'll finish up. CSLAP, as I go back up here just if I can, we used to test at 8 sites. We're going to go down to 4. The federal government kind of requires 4 of us. We don't have the need for the amount of data that 8 would produce, so to save a little bit of money, we back that down to 4 testing sites. A little more about that when we get to the reporting for CSLAP. Flipping the page over at the top, it gives you in line 5 how much we've written checks for. Checks written is less than money put in the bank, so we do have a surplus. Donations paid direct to our vendors. Carlos Alden, we need to say a thank you to him. He's been hosting our website. You can do it.
No, truck.
He has been hosting or paying for the hosting of our website since 2003. So he's got a considerable expense that he has been paying for us. So I would like to make a motion that we send him a formal thank you letter to thank him for his 20 years of donations of that hosting there. Same thing with the Schultzes. They have been paying for our internet in the background since 2011, and to Bill Zito since 2018. Again, expenses that are paid directly to vendors, which we don't have to put into our budget sheet, but we need to put in there so that we can keep track of that. So we had $870 paid to vendors directly. If we look at the total disbursements that we would have been responsible for, we'd have been at $4,422, which would have left us about $800 in the hole if we had to pay all that and we didn't have money that came in.
Motion to send the letters? You need a motion?
Made a motion.
Yes.
Okay, I'll second
Yeah.
yours. Okay. To both Schultz and Carlos?
I've got 5 people that I'd like to send formal thank yous to. Carlos being number 1, Jim and Joy Schultz for the internet, Bill Zito for the internet, because one does summer and one does winter, and it's a matter of switching between the two. Also to my son, which I don't have to do, I can say thank you, because he has been the web guru almost from day one. Carlos started up and started it, and he really did a nice job getting it started. In his infancy and wanting to learn a little more, he was like, I think I can do that, and I think I can do this, and he's opened his mouth more times than he really probably should have, because he's gotten himself down some really deep rabbit holes as far as how do I make this happen, and how does it all present itself, and when you look at the cameras, it's real simple to go and go, I want my winter fix of what the lake looks like in February. And you push the button on the web page, and right there it is. If it were that easy, it would be child's play. It is a lot of background and a lot of stuff that goes on in the background. And on that topic, Mike, you want to, let me finish the budget report. I'll get him to give you a little bit of information. So, yes, to say thank you, and also to my daughter. It's real nice when you push the button and your address shows up on a database and it's correct. And she's the one that did all the coding in the background, and there are literally hundreds of pages that make that all happen. She's the one that went to the Essex County real property tax rolls and pulled all of the property deed numbers in, so that when a property sells and transfers hands, we just push one button and we get the updated information automatically downloaded into the database. It's really kind of cool when you have that availability to be able to send out letters when it's time for sending an email. I pull in a spreadsheet, it populates it, we pull out the email addresses, and the letter goes out. It makes things really simple, considering what Chris did and I did decades ago, which was a spreadsheet, which worked. But when somebody updated their address or we wanted to pull an email address out, it's like, well, which column is... He and I looked at that both many times and goes, I don't know, but we made it work. So, but thank you to those people that have really, like I say, put, counts.
You asked for a motion, I'd like to make a motion that they do all of them, including the 2
Yes.
Formal letter for all 5.
If there's a second on that?
Second.
Okay, thank you. So finishing up here, receipts.
Can hand deliver that.
All in favor?
We'll send Katie's my paper here.
All right,
Yes.
thank you.
Catch it somewhere in the world, wherever it lands.
So at line number 9, we have how much we deposited. We go down to line number 1, we're back to, or line number 11, where we're back to what our bank account is. Line 12, 13, 14 are just background numbers that we haven't had any money come in that has been deposited this year for next year, the like, and it includes the amount of money that was actually put forth by those that paid directly. And the last line, number 15, is sitting in the background, waiting for something to happen as seed money, hopefully that we don't have to just dig into it and we can use that money. It is member money that was raised and spent during the milfoil project, and it was the reimbursement for the grant that was written for the milfoil project. So there's roughly $34,000 sitting in a Crown Point bank account that I keep holding and crossing my fingers that they don't wind up seeing and spending on our own, on their, for something that we don't know about. My relationship with the town supervisor and the secretary, or his supervisor or his secretary, keeps that money in check in a bank account specifically with our name on it. So there is money that if the boat launch goes sideways real badly, we have some money that we can utilize to possibly look at that. And I know Chris has got a GoFundMe that he will talk about in a few minutes. With that being said, this is the budget report that will be on our website, so if anybody wants to see it along with all the years past, there's nothing secret about it. If you have any questions, obviously speak up. Lynn is here, I see him. He's usually my financial guru, looking over things and making sure that I didn't make any mistakes. Am I good, Lynn?
Concentrating.
I made it in big print this year. I usually do one page, but I had for myself because I can't read it anymore.
Make a motion.
Need a motion to approve this.
I got a quick question. Can we look to see if we can go, people are willing to go digital on the newsletter? Like, I would rather just get an email with it instead of sending them on and putting it out and posting it. If there's nothing I don't want to do, it's tough luck to see.
We've looked at that. The newsletter we have chosen to go all electronic with. The dues renewal letter, however, we thought that we ought to do it by paper because there are a bunch of people that don't have printers that can't print the membership form that goes with it.
And believe it or not, some people probably don't even have the internet.
We have that issue also, and we are wrestling with that. And I talked to one of our members just the other day. They would love to see things in paper format because it's easier for them to see it that way. And you want to do it electronically, which is all great. Our database is not yet built such that we can go, this goes one way or that goes the other way. So something that is in the dialogue, whether it'll come to be or not sure, but yes, to save a couple bucks would be, a thinking process there.
Mike, can you do that?
She's not here to defend herself. So, yes, we'll consider that, Zach. That answer. Other questions, thoughts?
Yes, I just would like to just go over that one line item about the beavers. The expenditure is quite high, and that's been going up, so just keep that in mind as we talk about money and spending money. That's a
Yes. We've already,
major part of our budget.
yes,
We'll have a beaver report coming.
yes. We've spent some money on that already today. So, two things that I mentioned that is there a second on the motion to approve the budget report?
Yes.
All in
Okay.
favor? Okay, thank you. Back to the budget. In the past, we have given donations to the Chilson Fire Department, a not-for-profit, to Crown Point Fire Department, a not-for-profit, and to Thai Emergency, which is currently in the process of maybe going to a for-profit or wherever they're at. The officers have spoken among themselves and thinking to ourselves, we are bringing dues money into a not-for-profit and then turning around and giving that money to another not-for-profit, where you as gifters could give that money directly. The dialogue has been that we think it would be in our best interest, at least looking at with what we have going on with the boat launch, to forego giving money to Chilson and to the Thai Emergency and continue to donate to,
No, you want
my
to
bad,
Crown
my bad.
Point.
Crown Point.
Yeah.
And to Thai Emergency, yet continue to give a gift to Chilson for using the community center. Seems to be the most logical thing to do, especially looking at the expenses that we have going forward. If there are no problems with that, I would ask that we pass a motion that says we will give our traditional donation to Chilson and forego, at least for the foreseeable future, gifting to Crown Point and Thai Emergency. Paul made the motion. Anybody second it? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Of discussion?
Yes, can we make, for people who might want to, wish to continue to personally support those organizations, is there a way to make those addresses available so that they have the contact if they want to write their own individual checks? We could post that.
I don't-
You know, Chilson raises money every year, we get something in the mail.
Yes, Chilson already does. Yes.
Here, we will cover both those donations.
Was that,
We will cover both those donations.
you're gonna cover both of those? Okay, so we're gonna continue with your donation to cover them directly. Any,
Thank you.
We've got it in the budget. I think we should continue doing what we've been doing.
there are,
Not all of us contribute to these organizations, and they certainly need the money, and they support the light wholeheartedly.
agreed?
It's
Um,
been approved.
And they're not members of the.
They'll cover it, so with that being said, then,
So all people are satisfied.
that satisfy everybody?
We're not changing the budget based on,
Right.
the motion has been,
Motion's been, okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All those against?
What's that?
All those against?
Against?
Yeah.
Guess what?
What are we voting on? I don't.
You had a motion to discontinue that.
I think we just rescinded the motion to
Based
change,
based on the fact that
we've got
we have a donation coming in to cover it,
cover the,
it's not a direct expense anymore, so,
So the motion no longer
so
void.
I guess we're just taking the motion off the table.
Okay.
so we're gonna send a check and it's gonna be covered by Zach and Aviv. And since it's in the budget, we'll leave it there and we'll discuss this again next year.
I'd
Okay,
like to make a motion that we continue making those donations as in the trustee.
excuse me?
I would like to make a motion that we continue to do that.
Make the donations going forward,
Yes.
okay?
Second.
All in favor? Nays? Discussion?
We'll even cover it.
Okay. We'll discuss whether you're gonna cover it again next year, if you wanna do, okay. All right, so we'll leave it the way that it is, we'll say, okay. That's what I get. The other item that needs to be brought up within the budget is we are currently using an independent testing laboratory to do fecal quality analysis around the lake. The thinking behind that was it was started back when the milfoil was first identified in the lake back late 70s, early 80s. And everybody was saying it was your septic systems that were contributing to the nutrient load that allowed the milfoil to grow. So from that, several sites on the lake were chosen to do a fecal test, which is septic effluent, which could be a nutrient source. 20 years later, there has never been a defined point within the lake where the fecal matter has been greater than almost zero or very close to zero, which means there are no failing septic systems within the lake that we know of. The expense has been on the order of $200, $300, $400 a year for the sampling, depending upon where or how we did that. Cole this spring, or this fall, past fall, went poking around and found a fecal testing kit that is used traditionally for recreational use of the lake. Nowhere near as precise, maybe, as what you would have to do for drinking water, which is what the testing site or the labs that we were using were set up to test for. We did some testing early this spring, and the thinking is, as opposed to looking for failed septic systems in the fall, maybe we ought to look at recreational use of the lake more towards the spring or the summer at swimming areas and see if there are any issues where people may be recreating. The testing kit is significantly less expensive. At the end of the day, by the time somebody picks up testing kits and brings them to the lake and brings them back, the person that is doing the testing has about the same amount of work, but we have control over what we're doing. So in our budget right now, we did some testing this spring. It looks like it will work, and the budget will need to be amended for going forward, that we take out using a commercial lab, but putting in testing for in-house. So that is one line on the budget that will change based upon what we find going forward with being able to do it in-house, if that works out. So just so that you're looking at, and it's down towards the CNA water testing for fecal sites, and we have a $225 charge there, and we're looking at potentially using a $32 charge to cover the same thing. And Cole will let us know a little more about what he's found for results in a few minutes. So that kind of covers the budget as it is. Any other questions? I don't know if we have to make a motion to remove it. It's going to be added in our budget amongst the board. Okay. So that's that. Thank you for your time.
Next up is Jack with a fish stocking report.
Thanks. Anyways, I don't fish, so I have to, I refer everything to Zach. Zach's been taking care of it for years. And I talked to Zach this morning again, and email, we go back and forth a little bit. He said, 30 brown trout. You did a lot of work. I want to thank him also for getting DEC, the construction company, and everybody together so that they could stock the lake. And brown trout, 3,400?
3,920.
And how many have you caught so far?
Not that many.
There is another thing we just talked about. There is another, there is another couple people on the lake that dispute that number and say it was 400. And discussing with Zach is, our fish that we got came from Chateauguay?
I believe the vast majority of this year came from Chateauguay.
And this person talked to the one up here at Crown Point, and they said 400. So we're not wrong. It's just that there was two different fish hatcheries that put it in, and so this person was very emphatic that it was only 400. And I just said maybe they all swam down the thing. But fortunately, we got a few last year and a lot this year. Mostly, as you know, the pandemic has really, they couldn't get out and get the fish in. But now we have them. And anytime we have a fish fry, let us know. My wife and I will be there with our forks and ready. But that's it so far. Fish away.
Okay, next up is the water quality C-SLAP report from Rolf. He's already discussed the fecal testing that we've been done. He can let us know what we've been doing. Myself and him have been taking samples for the past year. And as he mentioned earlier, we're going down from 8 samples to 4 this year. Anything more you want to add? Or?
Results are on the website. My wife and I were out Monday? Tuesday, whatever it was this week, taking samples. There's compliments of my son and his drone a very nice little quick, short video loop on the web that shows us taking the samples, what's involved in grabbing the water from surface and at depth and seeing what the water quality or the clarity is. Secchi disc, which is a general indicator of water quality in very, very loose terms. The clearer the water, usually the better the quality. We are able to see 11 meters plus into the water before this round disc disappears. Keith does the processing, Diane does the processing. You see us out there just off of Charles Island, that's what we're doing out there. If anybody wants to join us, they're welcome to come out.
7.7 meters was the reading. That's a very respectable and somewhat typical reading for this thing.
And very consistent with the past.
Pardon?
And very consistent with the past.
Yes.
Yes.
Considering the lake is only 42 feet deep, we've got great water quality,
Yeah.
clarity.
The final depth was 11.7 meters or something like that. So when you can see 7 meters into the water quality column, that's a long ways down to see something. So, yes, the sun has to be at the right angle, the waves have to be just perfect, but, you know, that's kind of a typical year-to-year clarity. And the person that we work with at Nice Fola always remarks whenever we talk to her about the water quality. A lot of the lakes in the Finger Lakes, if you can see your hand in front of your face, you're seeing a long distance. So from that standpoint, results of
If
the last
she's
2 years are on the
she's working on
website.
one, I'll mention
My
it.
son the other day
Okay,
went
these are the items, I'm
to
sure
Garner,
just
'cause
wanna
we
bring it
get
up.
a report
Okay,
sent to us every year that gives us the data, but he wants to do it all electronically and have it auto-populate, which is admirable on his part, and
Move
it's a
her in
rabbit hole
before,
to go down.
before
In
Henry
the past
actually.
3 years, the
Oh,
state,
yeah.
between Nice Fola and that has changed where they put the data and how they put it on their personal websites 3 different times. And you want to pull that information into ours so it's always there. He was about ready to, he could have thrown his computer out the window the other day, he was about ready to. I haven't heard such colorful language in a long time, because you just can't go to this site and it's right there kind of deal. It's like, so. By the way, I was going to let him talk very briefly about the website there in the budget. If I can get him to sneak in there, he's got some. I'll put him on the spot.
Yeah, thanks. As you mentioned, Carlos has been kindly donating his funding for hosting for the last 22 years. Works out to roughly $6,000 or so in expenditures that he's made on our behalf, so that way we have cameras that you can see for live images, plus or minus a few minutes, of the lake and all of the photos that you guys have taken and submitted over the years. If you have a bunch more that you'd like to see up there, let me know. I can work through on that. We are closing in on 150,000 page loads. That's not necessarily a number of unique visitors. It's how many times a page on the website's been loaded. So I'm not going to say we're super popular, but for a small lake association that mostly holds organizational documents and minutes and things like that, I'd say that's pretty good. I'd say probably a third of those have been in the last 3 or 4 years. I don't know what's driving people's popularity. Maybe it's COVID and everybody's sitting inside wanting to get their little slice of Eagle Lake. The most popular pages that people visit are still the photo albums page and the webcam viewers.
If you have pictures like this, we will be more than happy. Thank you, Tom, for looking through his old picture collection and sharing with us pictures. But there's lots of old. If that's the way they come, if you got them, we'll scan them. Lovingly get them back to you.
A thank you to Roger Wicks. He has graciously let us use his internet as well as mount a camera to one of the trees by him, so that way you guys could all watch the causeway rebuild in mostly real time this past year. In 2020, the web host that we were using closed down. It's been a while since I've been here to give a report first, but the web host that we were using out in Washington State was closing down, so we migrated to new hosting services, a little bit cheaper and a little bit better response time. They're on the East Coast, so load time should be better for you. Other than that, it should have been seamless for all of you. And then there's approximately 220 pages that we host of various information and photo albums and things like that with roughly 10,000 files. It's a bit of a big ask for you to ask me specifically where something is, so if you are interested in finding something that you know should be there, Google is your friend. You can Google eaglake1.org, and then whatever you're looking for in the search results should be there. If you're looking for something specific, my dad or myself should be able to point you a little bit in the right direction if you're looking for like a collection of documents. I think that's about it for updates on that. It's a side project for me. I'm a tree trimmer by trade and arborist, so some of the stuff takes a little longer than having professional wet folks do it, but it is substantially cheaper. So, thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks a lot. All set with the C-SLAM? Okay, next up will be old business, lake level, dam clearing, beaver and trapper updates.
See, fecal testing cold? Sure.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just to let you know, we, as Ralph, I think already covered it, we had been doing testing in the fall as a result of the no-flow project. It was kind of a holdover, and sometimes you keep doing what you've always done. This year we happened to start thinking about it a little bit, said, geez, why don't we test the water to see if it's safe to swim in before people were swimming in it. So we did that. We waited till after Memorial Day, so some people were up. We did 3 tests, the same places we've been testing with the lab. As Ralph said, it's not the accuracy of going to a drinking water lab, but basically it's if you've got anything, it tells you. So it's 0 or unsafe. And all 3 of our tests came back 0. No reason to think there's any problem with the lake. I would suggest we stop doing the lab testing. We have no reason to think there's any problems. The last year was 0, 0 in 4 counties per milliliter, I think it is, which is very low. 235 is a safe level for swimming. So you can see our worst one was way safe. So, good news, you can swim. Bring it back in the top.
By the way, the CSLAP report, if anybody encounters swimmer's itch, they do want to know if people are encountering swimmer's itch on the lake. So if you have friends or rental people or anybody that encounters that, call me and I will report it to the state because we do want to know. So, it has been here before, a long time ago. So they've backed up stuff. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, all set. Next up will be the dam clearing, beaver trap updates from Dave. Lake level, I think we're about, where's Dave?
Right here.
I think we're about +3 now.
Yeah.
That's about to go up tomorrow night, but
Over the dam, and
Yeah.
the trapper last year, I believe, took 9 beavers. And this year, we're at 3 this week. I think that's it, though. Basically, it costs $100 per catch, and his initial setup is $200. So do the math, and I help him. It saves us money because he drives all the way up from exit 17 on the northway. And I go down while I was here all week to check the traps, and so every day we've had a beaver, so he's had to come up and take care of the beaver. That's about it.
Thank you for checking the traps.
okay, yes, I'm getting this all set up because we've gotten,
I also have Jack and Debbie.
yeah,
But we didn't have to clear any beaver debris this winter.
Yeah.
yeah,
They showed up late spring, and
Yeah.
you have 3,
yeah,
so, well, had 3.
yeah, past winters, it's just been a tremendous amount of time cleaning debris out of the dam.
Yes.
And great deal of beavers putting it back in, so we need to keep up on this, so that the lake level stays under control as well.
And now the DEC wasn't willing to come and remove all the big piles of debris.
Yeah,
And now when we clean it out from the dam, they want us to carry it and put it way off in the woods. And if you've been down there, the piles are huge. So
yeah.
it's a massive amount of work, but
So hopefully without beavers, the piles will start to rot away.
I'm hoping.
Um,
As far as the lake level is concerned, we have had over 2 inches of rain in the last 7 days here. So
Yeah.
it's high.
Yeah, so it's a bit high. The boards, of course, were taken out on time. May was very dry. There was almost no rain at all. And then once the spigot opened, it seemed like it just didn't end. And with what I see coming tomorrow night, let's hope we're not in the middle of it. Speed signs. Cole has brought us much farther down that path than we have been before. He had a lot of information together, and I'll let him present that to you. We've got a good idea of what's involved now, what the costs are, and what we would need to bear and what we wouldn't. So I'll hand that over to Cole.
So the way to get the signs, survey the members. Members wanted signs, and the board is trying to be responsive to what you asked us to do, and we've, I think, made some good progress. We're at the point where I think we can get the signs if we decide to go forward, but we're going to have to pay for them. So it's $6,500 to get the signs, and maybe a little more for installation. So I'll tell you a little about the signs, and then we're going to ask you to vote. We're going to make a decision whether we're going to go forward or not. The signs, the state, of course, has a number of requirements. They have to be on a breakaway pole. They have to be certain size and colors and all this kind of stuff. Fortunately, North Hudson just put some in, so I went up there. If you go up to Paradox Brewery in North Hudson, you'll see it. A solar sign. Somebody's been there.
I know where that is. Good pizza.
Yeah. So you can see the sign, but it's basically a solar sign, and it flashes your what your speed is. There's placement issues. It has to be after a stop sign, but it has to be on a straightaway so that when you approach it, you see your speed and you have time to react and slow down. So you don't want it by a corner and somebody just sees it and they're gone. You know, it's too late to do anything. I had also initially, when we started getting involved in this, questioned how effective they'd be. After you see a sign for a few times, you just start ignoring it. And the effectiveness, studies show the effectiveness does diminish somewhat, but even a couple years after you put it in, there is still some impact on getting drivers to slow down. So it does have a long-term impact. And a couple miles an hour might be the difference between somebody getting in an accident or ending up in Tany's dooryard or not.
I have a question concerning, I was surprised that the posting I read is still 45 miles per hour past all the houses.
Yes.
Well, the University of Florida is in Gainesville, where I live, in Florida, and University Avenue has reduced speeds as a result of students having been struck and killed, and the speeds are reduced now to 25 miles per hour on University Avenue. That's the northern border of the campus. There's a lot of students live north of that because the university's kept growing. There's 55,000 students there. But at any rate, that was a state highway that University Avenue was, and they took it down from 35 to 25 because of students being killed. I don't know of anybody being killed at the lake, but I don't think people should be driving it. Well, they do have signage up before they get to my property.
Right.
Down from 45 to 35, but then shortly after they pass through the curves, it goes back up to 45. And that'll kill people if you get struck at 45 miles per hour. 35 will probably injure you, but maybe not kill you. 25 is almost certain that you'll survive it. So I think we should be pressuring the state to do the thing that's proper. That was Florida's changed the law there at the University of Florida on that very fact of they killing people.
So that's a good point.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved, but it's my understanding the board has tried to get the speed limit reduced in the past. The board has also contacted the state police and the Ticonderoga police, who have both been somewhat responsive and tried to patrol more to enforce the speed limit we do have. However, think about it, it's a terrible place for the police to have to pull somebody over. There's no room. It endangers the person they pull over, it endangers the police, cars going around when a truck's coming the other way. So they're a little reluctant to do too much patrolling, and, you know, I kind of look at it through their perspective now when I drive through, and I'd say, I wouldn't want to stop somebody on that road, in that area. So you can understand where they're coming from. So,
They have parked at the antique store, kind of headed towards time,
mhm.
so that if somebody came sailing through, but, I mean, if you come around by our place, you could then see the, you know, the trooper sitting there, and then they'll quickly slow down.
Mhm.
Or coming from the other way, you'll hear the air brakes on the
On
tractor
the truck,
trailers
yeah.
here. But it is, and people have been killed. There were 2 motorcyclists, and then Topis right next door to us. So they have been killed there. But people go through, I mean, as I do the highway cleanup that along there, I, you know, kind of motion to people like, slow down. But they do, they speed 55, 60 through there, so.
Yeah, and in the past, before we started this speed sign endeavor, the state did do a study through there and determined that it wasn't a speed issue, it was an enforcement issue.
Right.
So hence the speed sign thing started up. I think the state probably has some pushback from the fact that it's the main route between the Northway and Ticonderoga, and there's a tremendous amount of truck traffic through there. But the original push was to try and get the speed limit lowered to 35 along the Eagle Lake corridor, and there was no support from the state to do that, unfortunately.
Have we ever tried petitioning the mill to talk to the drivers?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I mean, I wonder if that would be worth it, because, I mean,
I think we did years ago. I
Did we?
remember in a
Okay.
meeting, somebody having contacted them.
They were all trying to make time.
Yeah.
well, they.
Did you have a
and-
question? You had your hand up? Yeah.
Yeah, my wife is personally knows a couple of our state representatives, retired state representatives, and all of them have responded is what you just said, is that's a main trucking fare going to the mill.
Right.
They don't want to upset the mill. It's a main route going into Vermont and everything like that. They are never, ever going to propose reducing that speed limit. It'll never happen. It'll never get.
You know, it's giving
never-
priority.
So, you know, we could talk about this, but I'd like to keep things moving. It is what it is. You know, we would like enforcement, but it's tough for the police. They have been, I think, reasonably responsive, but they can't sit there all the time. It would be nice if we could get the speed limit lowered, but we've tried to do that. The question here is the radar speed limit sign.
2 questions. Firstly, your expenditure, is that for one sign or signs for both directions?
That's for 2 signs.
So 6,500 for 2,
Correct.
And then
solar powered.
Correct.
second question is, I know the state's been working on speed enforcement tickets by mail for the thruway. Has that been discussed at all as an expenditure we could do either as a revenue source where we pay for the sign, they share it with the organization? Because I know where I'm from in Rochester, they had red light cameras, you know, set up for years.
They have speed enforcement cameras that capture your license plate if you're going over a certain speed.
Yep.
So,
Other states have them in work zones and just send a ticket in the mail.
The requirements I saw for the sign, it's limited to what they can say, and you can do, you're going too fast and your speed limit. You can't record it. You can't record license plate numbers. So we would have to be breaking new ground to do that, which would be, you know, starting all over again.
Yeah.
The town, I've gone to the safety committee meeting with the town and talked to them, tried to get them to do something to put these signs up for us. They have no interest in doing anything. So the town would have to ask DOT to put the signs up. Then DOT puts the signs up. Normally the town would pay for the signs. The town is not interested in paying, they're not interested in doing the research into the type of signs they can do, they're not interested in doing anything. So I've got the application, I've got it made out. I've got locations on there. One would be right before your house, there's a speed limit sign, 45, and you got a straightaway, and the other one will be down just up from the antique store. So we have the corners, the S-turns there, and we'd have the populated area with the 2 directions. So that's where I've proposed the signs. I've shared it with the other board members. I haven't heard anybody suggest a different location.
What's the anticipated useful life of the signs, and what are the anticipated maintenance costs annually?
I'm sorry, I heard, what's the useful life of the sign?
Anticipated useful life of the signs, and then what are the anticipated maintenance costs annually?
Okay, so there shouldn't be any maintenance costs if there's solar. Eventually, they'd need new batteries. I don't know the useful life of the sign.
We read the mission statement at the beginning of this meeting. How does this fall under the mission statement?
And you raise a good point. I think it's probably a little gray area, but I think you probably all recall a truck going into the lake. Not long ago, the driver almost got killed, so potentially polluting the lake with paper in or...
We've had several go in over the years.
Yes, I can remember 2 of them that have gone in since I've been coming out.
Just between us and Borough.
And
I remember
so
that one.
you're right, it's in that gray area, but I think there is, it's somewhat in our mission statement, and we're asking you, so if you don't want to do it, you don't think it's
And
what we should be
follow-up
doing,
to
that's
that,
fine.
How does this differ from the gooseneck water situation that the board originally didn't want to have anything to do with?
I don't think there's any way the water situation impacted polluting the lake.
Yeah, the speed has been an issue with the trucks in the past that have gone into the lake. So that does directly affect the lake. Even though the truck that went off into Stubing's a couple of years ago dumped a significant amount of diesel fuel there and had the potential of polluting the lake, the DEC had to come in and dig up a tremendous amount of dirt and replace it over there as a result of that. So that's where it kind of, we put it as being a part of our mission statement.
Gooseneck Water also starts at Gooseneck and goes all the way down to the supervisor's front doorstep. So to kind of say it only affects, yes, it affects those people in the lake, but it affects a much greater range that those people also need to be involved, really kind of need to join together to solve, I don't want to say solve their own problem, but to work on the problem as a group as opposed to just Eagle Lake solving it for everybody that may be beyond.
I'd like to clarify too, when it comes to the boat launch, there are lots of issues with closing the boat launch for people personally. But for protection of the lake, if we cannot put in trailerable boats, we won't be doing water testing, we will not be doing invasive control, those types of things. That's the principle behind the ELPOI pursuing this. Personal rights and all those things and maintaining your property, we've made it into the big picture because we have to with the state, with the agencies. We can't just say small snippets based on water quality. So that's why you hear us talking about people's rights to go in, you being able to maintain your docks and things.
Excuse me, Diane, could we just focus on, we have a whole section on the boat launch.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I started out saying that we did this in response to the members having an interest in it, and that's why the board pursued it. I'll also share with you, we have mixed feelings on the board of whether or not we should spend this money. Why isn't the town spending money to make our residents safe?
We're talking about boat launch now.
Well, we're going to wait. We're gonna
We'll
talk
get
about
to
boat
that.
launch later.
We've got quite a bit coming up.
We got a whole section on the boat launch.
Have there been discussion of like trying to put a funding campaign together for it, instead of just paying for anything late? Whether it's a GoFundMe or whether it's,
I brought that up just before the meeting, actually, and it's just, there's a great uncertainty whether we could, it's easy to set up a GoFundMe, but it's a total unknown whether that's going to bring us the kind of money that we'd need to do it or not.
But we did also talk, we talked about both those two things, that and asking if people feel strongly that we should do it and they're willing to make a donation, and that would reduce what the cost would be to ELPOI. And if somebody does want to make a donation, would reduce that cost, then the members can vote on whether they want to spend the difference.
Yeah.
We could also do contingent. We could do a GoFundMe and try it and say if we raise at least some number of money, we could do it. We're open to whatever, or to backing off.
Well, where would the money come from? Does it come
From us, it would be roughly.
in the budget? Does it come from that $30-something thousand that's the mill formal money?
Right. And it would be roughly 6 years of our total dues.
No, I think
So it's a
the-
substantial expenditure.
It would
I
come
think
up.
the question was, are we gonna take the money out of the milfoil account, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
That's, the,
I don't think we can.
I think.
Thank
what
you.
the-
Go ahead.
I think what
Keep
the
going.
vote will be is, do we want to spend the 6,500 of the 20,000 we have on this project? That, I think, is what we're asking.
Yeah, thank you.
to vote.
And obviously, from a treasurer's standpoint, there has to be a cap on that. I know we had kicked around because basic, early on numbers around 6,000 with the hope that the DOT would kick in for install, that the town would kick in for filling out the paperwork. As Cole has found, the town hasn't been real responsive on even helping with filling out the paperwork. Kind of puts a damper on things a little bit. We also have to look at where if we spend 6,000 or 6,500 with the speed signs, how does that affect what might come up with the boat launch? And that's part of what Cole's trying to get to the end of here, is to, are we on board with 6 or 6,500?
Well, it's at least 6,500.
If we know that today we have a fight coming on our hands for the boat launch, then do we table that and refocus our attention? And where are we all at with the whole process in some respects?
I guess
Right. So I've gotten a quote from the company. It's $6,500 for the two signs. There may be additional installation costs. So that's what we're talking about. You know, I told the other board members, so there'd be no surprises, I'm going to vote against it. I don't think we should have to pay the money. I think we should put pressure on the town. But other members have wanted it, so we wanted to bring it before the members here and let you guys make that decision.
I guess I just want to clarify, I don't think the issue is that if we want the signs or not, it's who's paying for the signs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Should we go forward if we have to pay for them?
I think we're all in agreement, for the most part, that we want the signs pending funding.
Good point, thank you.
Our kind of original dialogue on it was, we will put up some seed money for it, say, hey, we're moving forward with this, we want to, but not to pay for the whole thing.
Right. And we did make that offer to the town when I met with the safety committee. You know, I said we'd be willing to share the expense, and their response is, they're not willing to share.
Yeah,
So
right.
they're not willing to do anything. So I've got the form made out, I've got a quote from the signs, I've researched into the type of signs that we can have. So I think we can make it go forward if you vote that you're in favor with it and you're willing to spend the money. I think we are at that point. So that's what I'm looking for now. So,
Well, we still have the issue of expense that might be associated with install.
correct.
If the DOT is not willing to cover the expense, I think as a group, officers anyway, we said 6,500 is kind of where we are at. We're not going to spend all 20,000 on two radar speed signs. That's not, at least not my intention of where that dialogue started.
Mhm.
So then it doesn't sound like we're really ready to make a decision, a vote, on expending money, because we don't even know how much money we're talking about.
It's $6,500 for the signs and potentially additional money for installation.
How far from the, like, line on the road, like, do they have to be installed? Like, from, you know, because the snowplow comes through, I know you said they were breakaway signs.
Yeah.
So if a snowplow hits it,
DOT's going to install them. I don't know. I didn't ask them how far from the white line it's going to
okay,
be.
all right.
There are obviously still a bunch of unknowns. The question at the time to answer is, are we willing to, from our
Well, we can put a
budget,
cap on it.
put a cap on it at 6,500 and say, we'll continue to pursue this, or are we not willing to put the seed money of 6,500 up and we call it quits right now and wait till a new administration comes in and tie, or, you know, maybe we win the lottery as a group or something, whatever. Or,
Which is another option, to table it for now and wait for a potentially new administration in the town and hope we have better luck lobbying with them.
And I know one of the dialogues that we had within the board is, we're not gonna spend the money tomorrow, because we're not fully, it's not a shovel-ready project, but we have to look at what's going to unfold over the next couple of weeks, next month or so, with the APA and where we are there. If we find that, you know, all of a sudden we're up against a money obstacle there, the money has to come from somewhere, and the radar speed signs would be put on the back burner.
Motion to vote, so I'm willing to spend 6,500 of our money.
Second.
Yeah, let's move on.
All in favor?
What was that?
Let me repeat the motion.
Yeah.
You made a
The
motion.
motion is to go to vote on whether we're willing to spend $6,500 of the funds.
So your motion is to say yes to it?
That he's asking.
He's, and I'm gonna vote no, but he's trying to move it along, thank you.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
got a motion on the floor to spend $6,500 of our money to get the signs installed. I think we had a second?
Can we have discussion on the motion? Sure. Have we asked anybody else to fund this? Have we reached out at all to the legislature for a member ad saying, because a $6,500 or a $10,000 or a $15,000, $20,000 member ad is not much. Have we asked for that before we choose to spend our limited money on that?
I haven't gone down that road.
That- My suggestion that may be a way to go.
I completely agree with you. What I'm just saying is we're talking about this for 20, 30 minutes now. The question is, let's vote
Yeah.
whether we're willing to spend our $6,500.
Not yet.
And if the vote goes down and somebody wants to pursue that, we can do it.
That's
So I-
plan B. So
let's-
we have the vote on the motion. All in
Right.
favor?
Of spending $6,500. Okay.
All
All those
opposed?
opposed?
All right, thank you.
All right. That answers the question.
I think for right now, it's
Yeah, I agree.
On getting us this far, so.
Yes. Cole has brought it farther down this road than we've gone so far, so. And we've got a lot of information, should we find a funding source in the future that we can run with now, so.
Well, I think we had a volunteer to pursue a member.
I'm volunteering to do something else. You'll hear that later.
Yes, we're
Well, while you're asking,
okay, moving on. Causeway Bridge and Lighting update. Well, it's done. The construction company was great as far as putting information out was concerned. There was a little bit, of hemming and hawing of what design they were going to use, how far up it was going to be. But at the end of the day, we've got what we got, which is basically, as far as the amount of water going through and getting the boat through, what we had before. The riprap is on either side of the abutments, so you do still have to kind of make sure you center your boat going through there. It's not any wider than it was. There's 6 inches of additional height now. The birds have already moved back in, so you may not have to bend your head as much as you used to be able to do, but you do have to kind of watch for what's flying around. They finally got the second street light put in down on the west end. That was a series of seeming unending pestering calls to the DOT and so forth over the winter. And I think they were going to do it right along, and they just got to it when they got to it. But anyway, that's done. Not as good as a light in the middle, but since there's no pole to put it on, that's probably best we're going to do is have them put the light out by Forest's Place. So that covers that. Any questions other than that?
If you have an opportunity to have any dialogue or any interaction with Peter Reel from Reel Construction, very nice gentleman to work with, very accommodating for information. Gave us the information that we needed to be able to share with you timely.
Yeah, he was very good for communication. You could get a hold of him anytime. He'd get right back to you throughout the whole project, so.
can I make a suggestion about sending Peter a thank you card? Because we did kind of hassle him a little bit about the street light.
Yeah.
I know I did, but just a thank you for the work. We love it. Thank you for the street light.
Yeah, that sounds
Very
a good
pleased.
idea.
And then if we ever need something again,
Yeah,
you could say,
yeah.
well, we were appreciated once.
Yes,
So-
yeah.
How many years is this about?
Well, the last bridge was
Not
what,
my lifetime.
1926? So we almost got 100 years out of the last one. I don't think any of us will be here by the time this one goes.
Just a quick thank you to the board. I do
What's
appreciate
that?
all the communication on the bridge. You guys engaged with New York State, which is difficult, and communicated well with the rest of the members. Thank you very much. for that.
Appreciate that. We put out a survey as our communication, what everybody wants. Are we flooding too much information out there? And it seemed to be pretty unanimous that people were happy with the communication they were getting, so appreciate your letting us know, Zach.
Did
And-
anyone
Forrest.
on the board or wherever complain about the fact that they have made it impossible for pedestrians to cross the causeway. They give you about that much space,
Yeah.
white stripe and the guardrail here. And so anybody who breaks down in a car or a bicycle or a motorcycle
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
beyond me to the west can't get across the causeway safely.
Yeah, that was brought up, are you widening the causeway when the first project was first proposed, but the state wasn't spending any money to do that. The bridge had to be made wider itself to, conform with current, regulations for it, so they were able to make that wider, but there was no money or willingness of the state to widen the rest of the causeway, because, there's a lot of people who fish out there, and you're kind of taking your life into your hands to walk out there and fish. There's just no room at all. And big trucks coming through, it scares you to death. But we did not get anywhere as far as, we asked about that, but it was, the answer right away is no, they're not spending the money to widen the
30
causeway.
years I've lived there on that property, I used to walk comfortably across the causeway, and they kept moving when they restriped, kept crowding it more and more and reducing the pedestrian riding possibilities.
Yeah.
It's dangerous now.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have to get on the lakeside of the guardrails in order to cross. And you'd be
And there's no
falling
place
down
to
the
walk
west.
there, yeah.
It's a terrible situation, actually.
Yes. We brought that up, and unfortunately, they would have to reconstruct the causeway because they can't make the lanes any more narrow. They'd have to build out the causeway, and they're not willing to spend any money to do that, as of now anyway. Unfortunately, 30 years ago when I was there, it's like we never walked across the causeway because it was just too dicey with the big logging trucks and such going through there. It was dangerous. So, we did ask about that. Going forward, folks that have passed away, Jack, I couldn't think of one.
Nobody's
I thought I
confirmed
had,
that, anybody here?
We had a good one. Okay, everybody's still alive, all right.
Fortunately, we've all survived and we're here, and hopefully we get to see you again real soon.
Yeah, let's have more years like this. Loon count, Dave, they're going to do it next week, but what was last year's?
Joanne says they roughly get 6 to 7 loons per year.
Yeah.
Over the last 3 to 4 years, so.
Okay. And I don't think any of us have not heard them at night, so they are they are very vocal birds out there, and they are getting more used to us. I notice, as I boat around, I'm always looking for the loons, and they'd see me coming half a mile away, and they do their dive, and they now will let you get closer before they do anything. So just be aware of that when you're out boating. Don't assume that the loon is going to take the first action. Yep.
What's the number on the new ones, new baby pairs?
I haven't heard anything about any nesting pairs this year.
Perpetuating, or are we just, adults?
I think they're just counting adults, right?
Adult, well, I haven't seen a baby on the lake, so.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody mention anything about any nesting pairs this year. So, new business. Here it comes. Won't launch closing, or more specifically, closing to trailered traffic. The board and officers have been doing a tremendous amount of background stuff over the winter since we were called to order from the APA and informed of the decision that had already been made to close the launch to trailered traffic as opposed to the alternative 3, which they had told us was the preferred alternative in 2019 of doing a study and making a determination after that as to what they were going to do. We found out, as we sent a letter out and such over the winter, that only one item of these 6 or 7 was even looked at, and that was the boat count, and even that they did not take any of that information into account in making their decision. So that's just cracking the door open to all the things that we found, inconsistencies from the APA and DEC as far as what they have said about or done in the past with it, and what they've been saying and doing about it now. In 1972, when the first UMP was put in place, the boat launch was in compliance, or they would have closed it by 1975, which was written into their documentation. In 1988, when they did that UMP, they did not close it. There is a piece of land that is carved out around the boat launch in that all of the maps that we've seen that is not classified as anything. It's kind of no man's land. There's issues with the camping area at the other end of the lake, and it's linked to the boat launch, and how that was at one time more or less considered an active camping area. The state maintained it. The state had a ranger that went out there and maintained it, and that was let go over the years for funding or other reasons, and so that's kind of, you know, the state has let it go to the primitive state that it is now. There's a whole lot of information to put forward about that. Some of it we have passed along. I will start with what each of us has been doing as far as trying to pursue this issue to keep the launch open to trailer traffic. Because even though the decision has already been made, and it's going to be very difficult to try and open dialogue with the APA again to perhaps have that looked into, but we're doing the best we can anyway, and probably our best avenue looking forward, because as Rolf had mentioned earlier, we looked into, you know, the legal aspect of it, and that didn't look like a road that we would probably have a positive outcome from, and it could cost us a tremendous amount of money before we had any outcome from that. Right now, it looks like, you know, putting pressure on the APA as far as, you know, bad press, or hearing from everybody. If you, and it's not just the APA, if you write the governor, we discovered if you write the governor will then require the APA to respond. So that may be one of the better ways of getting a hold of their attention. There's a board. There is a posting right here that I will pass around, and I'm about to throw it over to Cole because he has put together, as his part of this, a letter writing campaign for everybody to write the people that are involved in this. The governor, the APA board chair, and Barbara Rice, the APA executive director. We did get 2 responses from her from 2 letters that we had sent out. The first was a fairly short letter, and you know, stating our opposition and the opposition of the town of Ticonderoga and the town of Crown Point and such, and Essex County. And we basically got a letter back saying, we told you we were going to close it, and by 2024, the end of the boating season in 2024, they're going to install a barrier. We sent out another letter that was a long-form letter that had a tremendous amount more detailed information as far as all the inconsistencies and such that we found, and we did get another very quick response back from her stating that we will take this under consideration. That can be determined as maybe we got their attention or maybe we're just getting blown off again, but we got another response out of it anyway. So now's the time to strike. Everybody, if it affects you, if it doesn't affect you or affects your neighbors, you'd be helping your neighbors. Future generations of your family that may want to use the boat launch, even if you don't currently use it. Renters, if you're renting, that would need to get their boat in and out of there. There's a whole lot of scenarios where, you know, in the looking forward, you may want to use the boat launch, even if you aren't now, for trailer traffic. So now is the time to strike and start sending some letters to the governor or these people in the APA. Doesn't have to be anything long, but if you're looking for, you know, inconsistencies or things to write about, there's a lot on the eaglelake1.org website, our website, of all that we've done over the winter. Rolf has literally got hundreds of hours in reading the documentation from the APA, calling the officials, calling government officials, working with Dan Steck, the senator up here, and so forth. And he's documented a lot of it on the slideshow on the website, and there's a link to that. It's long. There's a lot of detailed information in there, but it's a good thing. You know, we've got plenty of rainy days this summer. Sit down, relax, look through it, and you'll get to see that it's not just one or two things. It's just tremendous amount of inconsistencies over the years. Many of them may or may not, help us. Some of them could be really helpful. That's a little hard to say right now, but there's a lot out there, and it's good to just get informed as to what we've been doing, what we've been looking at, and what ammunition that we have going forward. Because the biggest problem that we have going forward probably is what's known as rule number one, where I work, which is it doesn't have to make sense. So we need to, do everything that we can to push the issue forward. And because the APA has had a lot of bad press recently about beach closing in Broad Alban and other things that they've been doing. Plant remediation, I think it was in Lake George, that they got their hands slapped on. So now may be an opportunity that may be gone in 6 months. So I'm going to start passing these down from this table here.
Let me ask you a question. Is there a certain narrative you would like us to follow or argument, or does it not matter?
Well, that's where I would say, take a look on our website. There's a slideshow there. I'll let Rolf give a demo of that as far as to what he's put in there real soon. He can also, after the meeting, after the picnic, if there's enough people still around that they want to look at this, he's brought equipment to show it to you. I'll let him speak for a minute now.
There's two trains of thought as you write to your elected officials. Who you choose doesn't make a lot of difference. It does make a difference. Obviously, writing the governor, writing the APA is the first start forward. But to write your local representatives, even if you don't live in Dan Steck's legislative district. But the two chains of thought. One, right from a passionate point where this is really going to screw up my use of the lake that I've enjoyed for 25 years, or take a look at the slideshow or do some research in the background to find out one of the items that Keith mentioned, i.e. the fact that there is a piece of land from 1973 that was cut out, and follow that thread and become kind of an expert on it and say, why is this particular inconsistency not being addressed? So if it's going to affect, obviously, some people because they can't get to their place, others because they've been using it, for decades, put their boat in and out of the water because recreational use of it, they can drive to their camp.
Well, another issue, I don't know if anybody saw of this, is this directly affects people who are older, who cannot physically lift a boat, and people with disabilities.
So on this handout, there's some bullet points that include that.
Yep, I'm about to hand it over to Cole. But, Americans with Disabilities Act, that may be one of our really good paths to go down. So if you write a letter and concentrate on that, and even if you just focus on that one subject,
These are a topic where Americans with Disabilities Act is definitely covered and will be covered more when they do whatever they've said they're going to do for changes at the campground. There is a whole document that the state has put forth that says if you are changing campsites and doing improvements, you have to, and they talk extensively in there about Americans with Disabilities. That would be one thing to write as far as, have you considered?
So Keith said, wait for a rainy day, and you can go look at the slideshow
tomorrow
and find a reason. So I agree with that, but I also don't want to wait for a rainy day. I want today.
Yes, here
I've got paper,
send it over to Cole now.
I've got envelopes, and I've got pens. I'd like everybody to write a letter now, before you leave, put it in an envelope and leave it with us. The reason I ask you to leave it with us is so that I'll mail them over a period of time. I recently retired from working for the controller's office, and if you wrote to the controller's office and complained about a municipality, you got a letter from me. I'm used to being on the other side of this and responding to those letters, whether it was signed by the controller, deputy controller, or by me. I wrote that letter. We paid attention to all those letters, and particularly a handwritten letter that was short and direct, and that's why there's no form letter. If a bunch of people sign a form letter and it all comes in, that's one letter, and it doesn't get that much attention. Individual letters do, and you don't have to be long. As far as ideas, we have several bullet points on our handout. Pick one that resonates with you And if you don't care about the launch, do it for me, as your neighbor, because I do care about the boat launch. If we all write a letter, and Joanne, would you pass paper and pencils out? I know your hand's up for us.
I have a question.
All right, go ahead.
Are private launches, new ones or current ones, still allowed? They're not going to be
I think Chris is going to talk about
terminated,
that. So
Yeah.
we're going to address that in another point.
Yeah,
are they?
We have another speaker that's going to address that.
yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a point. I worked in an state agency for more than 30 years, and we handle things the same way.
Mhm.
Governor's letters get sent back to the agencies anyway. I even know of a situation where a letter to the governor asking that somebody be fired went back to that particular person for a response.
And that's right. If you
And
write,
it really happened. I would add something to this though, and that's sending things to BEC. I know that APA is the controlling agency of this, but BEC is more politically sensitive.
That's great.
And I think they ought to be
Good
added
thought.
to this.
Good thought, yeah.
that's a good point. I tried to make it simple, so I gave you some easy bullet points. You don't have to do any work. You can look at that. You can write a letter. It only has to be 3 paragraphs. Don't close the launch. I want it open for this reason. Thank you for your attention. Short and sweet. A bunch of letters handwritten like that will get the attention. You're absolutely right. If we write to the governor, it's going to go to the agency, but
that's
it
what's
will
happening.
say, please respond.
Yeah.
And they will
Oh,
respond.
yeah.
Yeah, and
So
they did.
that's why I've suggested writing to the governor, because it'll get us a response from APA and or DEC.
But I completely agree about the handwritten, don't send group letters that are all the same because
Why aren't you answering my question?
All right.
I can't hear.
We have another speaker that's going to address your issue.
Yes, we've looked into that, so that's coming up next, okay? Anything else, Cole, or?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Everybody,
On your letters, we will make copies of them so that we can put them on our website. And if you get a reply, please forward it to us so we know what they said to you. So again, we can kind of keep track of that. Several people have written prior to this point and have sent me emails concerning the boat launch. I have them. I have not gotten them onto the website so that we can point the APA and say, this is what people have already said. It is on my to-do list. There's several of the people have written already directly to the APA and expressed concern. So again, it's keep the fire going with them.
Yeah, yeah.
And Forrest, you were concerned about new boat launches?
Well, you ought to be thinking about what you're going to do if the governor says no. And it seems to me that one of the things ELPOI could do would be go back into their budget and decide
And-
what's the
and
most
you're gonna
important
talk about
thing
that, right,
that you
Chris?
need to do.
Yeah, Chris is gonna talk about it, because we have thought about that, yeah.
let me just finish up with the letters,
Leasing
please.
some land or something, or leasing someone's boat launch there already, that gives the ELPOI members and/or neighbors or whoever, the right to launch their boat, but not to park there, so you'd have 2 people, one to drive the car away and one to drive the boat away, so it wouldn't tie up someone's property, but to solve the problem, it may come out of the failure of riding.
Oh, that's very,
I think it's a good
it's a very
likelihood
possible,
the riding will be a
yeah,
failure because
yeah.
government is more and more hard-headed.
And we're in agreement with you, and we have somebody that's going to address that
Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
That's
That
why,
has been
that's why
brought
we
up.
deferred it, because we have somebody that's going to talk about that.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
All right, all right.
All right, so thank you, I see people are writing, please, write a letter, leave it with us, and then go home and write at least 2 more letters.
Yes.
Okay,
On the rainy day, and you can look at the slides. of where we-
you're up next.
With your point, I guess I will and I won't.
Jack.
We do
Yes.
have a plan, we do have, what we're presenting here is writing letters, getting in contact with people, but we do need to think about Plan B. So if there is land on Eagle Lake somewhere that could, support a boat launch of some sort, that needs to be thought of, needs to be worked out. Eagle Lake, a lot of Eagle Lake the shoreline just doesn't work. So you'd have to find the right location, the right owner of that property who would allow that to happen. So there's a very limited pool of property that could work on. That also then presents who controls it, who's allowed in, who lets people in, who monitors it, who pays for it, who insures it. So there's a big part of it. What's that?
And whether the APA.
Oh, and the APA has to let us do that, by the way, too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the big problem to begin with.
So, especially if it's a more formalized launch, it would obviously probably have to have a locked gate. Members would have to have keys, or we're a boat dealer. We go to a lake that is private, completely private. There's one person that has a key, and that person has to go there 70 to 80 times a year, twice, in and out, to let those people get their boats in and out. I don't know of anybody who's willing to do that if we have that spot. So it has to be a different system than that. But in that situation, you have to be a member of their association. You also have to pay, I think it's $20 or $25 per season to use the launch. So again, that's a potential plan B.
Are there any volunteers that want to give up a piece of property?
Yeah.
That's wetland.
I haven't talked to Eugene Slade,
Well, it's actually not that.
but he has a pretty good piece of property at the east end of the lake. I have no idea. He's aging, and he hurt his foot and ankle 4 years ago. And at any rate,
I'm not aware that he owns property.
he has
to
a
the
boat
lake.
on the lake, and I don't know how he would feel about, but when people are aging, they enjoy the benefits of some little bit extra income coming.
He doesn't own property
He does
on the
not own
lake.
property.
He has a
Property
road.
owns the lake.
He doesn't.
No, he does not.
He has a road
Where does he
that
keep
goes
the
that
boat
way.
that he could run
He
from?
keeps it at his
Jack has
friend's.
actually volunteered for his property, but
Mm.
but again,
Eugene doesn't have property.
Just
Yeah,
from a
he doesn't have
standpoint, that is
lakefront.
But
not-
anyway,
Yeah.
It's not easy.
I think that issue of finding a private launch that this group could finance at whatever price it has to be in order to work the budget. And because I think it's highly unlikely that you're gonna change the minds of government when they've already made the decision.
Well, that's what we're up against, and yes, we are open to suggestions of, finding if there isn't much property on the lake that you can launch from, and the ones that do exist, they're not really owned by anybody who would be willing to either sell that part or deal with the liability of having people use it to put boats in and out. Because it isn't just the small boats. Somebody's going to want to put a huge pontoon boat in there, and will the grass or whatnot support that and all that? So they're opening themselves to a tremendous can of worms if they retain ownership of the property and say, okay, for $25 you can dump your boat in. I don't know of anybody who's willing to do that. Could we purchase a piece of property? That's possible, of course, depending on what it would cost, but I don't know of any Yeah, and then there's the ongoing that we'd have to get liability. There's taxes that would own on it, and I don't know of any property that would be available that would be able to support a launch, unfortunately. So we haven't eliminated that possibility, but it's a steep hill to climb as far as finding something that would give us that option where ELPOI could provide a launch to the property owners on the lake.
Jerry's has some.
Yeah.
We live on the south side of the lake. Most of you live along the road. You have a way to get to your property whether you put a boat in or not. We don't. That road, that launch and the lake is our road. We can't get in or out of here. We can't walk in. We can't drive in. So we need a launch. And so we have thought about alternatives because I agree with what Laura said. I don't think we're going to get them to change their mind. but they might be willing to say, look, we've got lake residents that are paying a lot of taxes to a town and a county in our state. So maybe we should open it for a week or two at the beginning of the season and a week or two at the end of the season. People can get their boats in and out. That would, of course, help us immensely, but it would help everybody if an alternative like that could be accepted by the APA. So that's my thought, is to try to encourage them to look at alternatives. They still have DEC police, they still have rangers. These rangers could come there for a period of time. People could come in and out for that period of time. Now we're in, and then at the end of the season, there's a period of time. We might have to make an adjustment. Maybe it's before or after we normally leave or come here. But maybe we would need to make an adjustment to do this. But this is a bureaucracy, and I'm hopeful that all of these letters will help, but I'm not optimistic about it. But that's my suggestion, and as an alternative. I'd like to see it open, but I don't know that it will be.
Yeah. Understand that some of the questions that you've raised were brought up when the APA summoned us to the February 1st meeting. They have been brought up back in 2019 when we were originally told about this. The option of keys, the option of alternative boat launches, opening it up for residents. All of those are opportunities, but we have to get back to the table with the APA. And I'm going to kind of derail things here a little bit, because I know there's a gentleman that has reached out to us that has ability to lobby and has got an idea that may drive the political involvement to a different level. So that, I know Chris has got postcards that he wants to talk about. We'll catch those in a minute. Forrest, thank you. Yes, we'd love, if you want to give us your property, or, you know, I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form, but you have a piece of land that would actually allow people to launch where the old road used to come off, where you kind of park there.
Yeah, well, family lore from the former owners said that's where the floating bridge landed.
Right, and that's one of the
I don't know if that's true or not, but it looks like you can still see the little wagon road going Spoon Lake as you leave my property going west.
You have one of the fortunate pieces of land that actually has an ability to get to the edge of the lake with more than just I'm going to put my backpack on. You look at most of the land around, this dialogue is taking place. There are maybe 5 places on the lake where there are currently boat launches, and I'll call them, for lack of a better word, they're primitive launches at best. You got to go past somebody's front door, past their side, over the septic system to get to their private little launch that you can maybe roll a kayak over, a little bit bigger boat than that. And I hate to impose upon those people for the entire community. But Henry, if you would tell us what you got there. Henry Bartlett is a longtime resident down in the far eastern end there, and I'll let you introduce yourself because you know your background better than I do. But thank you for offering, Henry, to get involved in this whole thing at a vastly different level.
So my name is Henry Bartlett. I live on Harris Point Way. And I don't want to one-up the president who said that he was here 2 weeks. But I have it on reasonable authority from my father that I was conceived in a tent.
Oh, man, you got it.
He said it was very rainy in July of 1954, and what else are you going to do?
It's a little longer than that,
Oh boy! In a previous life, I used to be a lobbyist. I was a registered lobbyist for New York State, in New York State. I'm not a registered lobbyist anymore, but I think I remember how it works. My thinking is, I think that the board has done a great job, a huge amount of research that kept us. Now, if you have like 2 hours, you can ask Ralph any question about this. And you'll hear all about it.
That's fair. That is fair.
I asked him for the time and he built me a clock here. My thinking is that there's a next level that we can do. I think everything that is being talked about is a great idea. We should continue to do all of that. But I think the next level is to try to get the legislature to weigh in on this. And not just anybody. I mean, it's great that your local assemblyman cares about this, but honestly, he's a Republican.
Yeah.
When there's a Democrat supermajority in the Assembly and in the Senate. And all of the statewide office holders are Democrats. So I think if we rely on the local Republican member of the Senate or the Assembly to help out, it's not going to carry a lot of weight. What I would suggest is there are 4 legislative committees that have oversight over NCON, the APA, and who work with the governor's office. And those are the Senate and the Assembly Environment Committee, and then the Senate and the Assembly Tourism and Parks Committee. They have slightly different names. I've drafted, shown to the board, a letter to be signed by the members of those committees. To the NCON Commissioner, to the APA Chair, to all the members of the APA Board, including the Executive Director, and to the Governor's Office, that basically says, for all of the reasons you guys have discussed here, this is a bad idea because, ... and asking them to reverse the decision. I agree with you that it's a long shot. I think there's a rather good chance that this decision is going to stick. But I think that if the legislative committee that funds your agency says we'd really like you to rethink this, it's going to matter more to those agencies than if a Republican member of the legislature who has zero authority over it says anything about it. Or frankly, that if all of us say anything about it. So what I would propose is that if I get authorized by this group to do this, I'll approach those committees. I'll approach the chairs of the committees, and I'll approach the ranking minority members of the committees and say, here's a draft letter. Edit it if you like, but we would really like your members to sign on to that letter. And we'll work out an electronic way to do that so that they can send an email that says, yes, I'm willing to sign on to that letter. And then we get them, copies of course to the board, but we get them to the right agencies. If I get permission from the group to do this, the first thing I would do would be I would call Ashley Doherty, who is the governor's environment secretary. Young lady, relatively new to the job. I don't know her, but I'd cold call her and say, the governor's not too popular in my country. I'm a rare commodity. I'm a liberal Democrat who voted for the governor and lives in the Adirondacks. I'd like the governor to look good here. You know, she could make one phone call and change this rule. And by the way, we'll give her an out. She doesn't have to say that she's violating the guidance of the APA. We can say they just missed the fact that this is necessary to access the Crown Point contract, and that would fit within the land use. So I'm going to try that first, and then say to them, but you know, if that doesn't work, we're going to go to the legislature, and we're going to do sign-on letters, and we're going to get those sign-on letters out there. We'll get them to the press. You know, the local Sun, all 8 people who read that newspaper, would I'm sure, you know, like to cover this. We could probably get it covered maybe in some of the Hearst papers. So that's my approach, and what I would ask for from this group is just your blessing to go do that. Because I don't want to call them up and say, well, you know, I, Henry Bartlett, private citizen who live on Harris Point Way, think this is a great idea. I want to say I've been asked by the Landowners Association, the Property Owners Association to do this. So that's my point. And one other thing, I have a list of all of the members of those 4 committees, and I'm going to let you look at them during lunch. If anybody knows anybody that says, oh, I have a good relationship with so-and-so, please let me know, and I'll try to use that to our advantage.
Henry, did you bring a copy of your letter with you?
I did. Now, again, this is a letter I'm going to suggest that they sign. So if we get them to do it, they, of course, will want to edit the letter. They're not just going to take word for word what I write. So there are copies of that available, and you can post that on the website if you want to. As a draft.
I will. Would you like to read it?
Yeah.
All right, so this is.
I've read it, it's short, it's sweet, it's to the point, and I greatly thank Henry for all of his time and effort that he's put into it. Yes, he asked me for the time, I built him a clock, but with that clock, he now knows how to tell time, and he can go on and show other people how to tell time.
It's really only short. It's really only short if you compare it to 12. So this is a letter to Governor Hochul, Chairman Ernst of the APA, and Commissioner Sagos of the Environmental Conservation Department. Dear Governor Hochul, Chairman Ernst, and Commissioner Sagos, now this one is written from the point of view of the Assembly Environment Committee, so I would do 4 of these, but all worded the same way. We, the members of the New York State Assembly Committee on the Environment, call upon the Governor, the Adirondack Park Agency, and the Commissioner of Environmental Conservation to reverse the decision to close the Eagle Lake boat launch in the town of Ticonderoga effective 2024. To be clear, we oppose the APA plan to modify the boat launch by eliminating the ability to launch a trailered boat with a vehicle. This was an ill-advised decision which will do serious harm to the residents of Eagle Lake and those who use Eagle Lake as a recreational resource. We find that closing the motorized boat launch will have the following effect, and then there's a series of bullet points. It will reduce the property values on Eagle Lake, because many potential buyers will not consider owning property on a lake where there is no reliable means to launch a boat. It should be noted that much of the shoreline of Eagle Lake is rocky, while other sections are too shallow and the bottom too soft to be used as a safe boat launch. The majority of the people who live on the lake do not have access to a place where they can launch a boat except at the public boat launch. Many people who live on the lake made decisions about what kind of boat to buy based on access to this boat launch, which has been a resource for more than a century. The launch facility was fully functional for many decades prior to the creation of the APA. The state-owned and maintained Crown Point Recreational Area on the North Shore includes picnic, camping, and swimming facilities which can only be reached by boat. The many families who utilize this facility can only reach the site via a motorized boat launched from the public boat launch. Several homeowners on the lake have property that can only be reached by water. They rely on this public boat launch. When they purchased their property, they never imagined that the state would remove the only reliable means to access their property. Some people who own property on the lake rent their homes out for a part of each summer. If potential renters don't have access to a boat launch, they may well decide to rent in another region or even another state. Reducing the number of people who use Eagle Lake for fishing, camping, boating, and swimming will have a ripple effect on the economy of the region. People who do not visit the lake will not buy goods and services in the region. In an area as economically depressed as the town of Ticonderoga, this seems an amazingly ill-advised action on the part of the state agency. There also seems to be some serious inconsistency in the policy of the APA, to close motorized launches for lakes under 1,000 acres. Only a few miles from Eagle Lake, the state plans to maintain public launches at Paradox Lake and at Putnam Pond. Both of these bodies of water are under 1,000 acres. The APA says they are keeping these launches open because they're linked to state-owned camping sites. As previously stated, the Crown Point Bay recreational facility is also state-owned and is also a camping site. And the only access is by boat. Moreover, the APA has offered no evidence that this action will measurably improve the environment of the lake, which is never congested by motorized traffic. Conversely, the negative impacts will be obvious and immediate. For all these reasons, we strongly encourage that this action be reversed. So,
wow.
like the access to disabilities line. I'm gonna work something,
Yeah.
you know.
It's so fabulous. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Is there any way that you can add in one line in there about, especially for them? That's the only way emergency services can get there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a great
You know, I mean,
forgot
that's
about
it.
Yep.
Great idea.
To the gate, that's the problem.
Talk to Mark Bartender, who's the fire chief here, because he can speak specifically to the health and safety issues that the fire department will have if the launch is closed. I think it would be fun.
Great, thank you.
So do we have a motion to let Henry go forward?
Yes.
No, second?
Second.
All approved? Okay.
We'll get it drunk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll get it.
Thumbs up. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Obviously, if there's anything that we need to do to support you with making contact or gaining information,
Yeah. Okay, I will throw this back to Chris, who, as part of his contribution to all of this, has gotten together a bunch of postcards and is getting together a GoFundMe for possible funds moving forward for the APA in the boat launch issue.
call if you need to do anything with letters, to garner letters while Chris is finishing up here.
I didn't hear the first part.
If you need to do anything with collecting letters while Chris is finishing up.
You can give me a letter anytime.
So I didn't think I'd have to follow that.
You want one?
I just made this little postcard, that's all. So, literally last weekend I was at the boat launch and watched people launch their trailer boat, launch their kayak. This picture is kind of the picture we've been using. It's the launch at Garnet Lake. And there's a couple things about Garnet Lake, but the issue is, obviously you can't back your trailer boat in, but backing your truck up and then getting in your kayak, you often set your kayak halfway in the water and then push yourself off. That barrier is in your way then too. So it's, again, I put on this postcard, it's more for everybody, but after being there, seeing all these things going on, that's what generated this last week. There's three QR codes on the back. The first one is to the ELPOI website, specifically the boat launch page there. The one on the right side is for the petition. And back in, right around Easter, we created a petition which has since gotten about 1,800 and some signatures. I was initially a little nervous on that because initially there were lake residents, but there was a lot of outside people. So I initially thought, hey, if we can get all the lake residents to sign it, that'd be great. But obviously it's gone way past that. As of late, there are more lake residents that have signed on to it. And the only thing that I will caution you, at the end of your signature, there is a place to donate. The donation goes to change.org, which is the website that's hosting that, and it does nothing specifically for us other than raise that survey in the search results on their page. So that money, if you have donated to it, it doesn't come to us. It will not come to us. It's more for raising that survey within change.org and to support the change.org page, which is all free. So I hope that we had a question the other day, are we getting that money? No, it's not there. So then in the middle of that card is a GoFundMe QR code. At the moment, that page is nothing more than just a picture. The money, if someone scans this and donates, there's no specific language there to tell you what you're donating for. So that's unfortunately kind of a work in progress, but it will be updated shortly. It can be used for legal fund if we need to go that route. It can also be to buy a piece of property if we end up having to go that route. So We haven't done a GoFundMe specifically for it because we don't know exactly where we're going. So we need to keep doing all of this, and we need more help from everyone that has ties to people that can maybe push this along. We do not have all the answers. So, and again, it's, we did some research. The boat launch probably came into existence in the early 1930s as part of boat launch and the beach area. All came about at the same time in the 1930s when American Wire Company or something relinquished their rights to that property. So then became state land. It then was developed. There's not a lot of specific history on that I could find other than digging through conservation reports from the 1930s where they show pictures of Eagle Lake. They don't really discuss exactly what happened, but that's when it came to be and has been enjoyed for nearly 100 years since. So I guess that's all the things I had there. So I guess if you hand these out, and that's the intent, we're going to hand out. I had 500 of them printed. We're going to hand them out to some key people that are around and go to the boat launch on a regular basis. Stick it under a windshield wiper of a car, talk to somebody, hand it to them. We do need to be a little careful on what we're doing. All these signs, they're there, and there's sign ferries and there's postcard ferries and everything else, but it's may not be an official effort. So,
Quick note for my days in Boy Scouts and doing campgrounds and things like that. If it doesn't have postage on it, you can't do it in somebody's mailbox. Post period for now, so donors and things like that rather than actual postal mail.
yeah, these in this version are not specifically designed to be mailed, but again, you can take it to Stewart's, you can take it to the diner, you can take it anywhere you want, pin it up on the poster board. Again, hand them out to anybody you know. It's just another way to get quick little information out and give people a link. And if anybody does want to, it is handing them out. The QR codes are all active, but again, the GoFundMe is not specifically, it's set up, but it's not defined. So that will be done later next week. So.
If you have any expertise with GoFundMe or setting up or want to be involved in the dialogue, Chris is more than happy to have you join him and the rest of the officers in trying to figure out what we want to say on that GoFundMe page. The same holds true. I know you mentioned that one of the links goes to our Eagle Lake 1 boat launch page. And I know Michael's not going to like me, but we may need to do some reorganization of that. If you have any thoughts to make that page more visible, more user-friendly from, I look at it and I know what's there, Mike looks at it, he knows what's there because he set it up, but from a general user standpoint, the outside world, a different set of eyes, goes a long ways towards, how about we put this over here, or if you have, Henry offered that we can put his letter there, that's the easy part, putting it there. We put it in as a JPEG where you can read it right there, or you put it in as a PDF where you have to click a link. One is easy, it's in your face, the other one takes an extra step. Everybody has their own ways of using electronic media. We are not the experts on it. We can get the information there, but please, please reach out to myself, reach out to Chris, reach out to Cole, Chris, Jack, my son. Let us know, casual conversations or by phone, by email, whatever it needs to be that you feel comfortable with. Let us know how best we can help, or if you can help us. Henry also mentioned, if you've got people in government that you know. I know 2019, Zach wrote a dozen or more letters with his wife and Dean to various people. Do you still know those people? Can you reach out to them again? Can we reach out to them using your name as a way of contacting them? And it's upon how you know these people. One of our residents said, hey, I know Jeremy Cooney in Rochester personally, wrote them a letter. That gave me the opening of a door, because I am also in their legislative district, to reach out to them and say, hey, who should we direct some questions to, or can we give you more information? This is a group effort. This does not expect the officers of the ELPOI to solve it for somebody else. We all have to be involved in it if we want to solve it.
And that's what I add, if my letter gets posted as a draft, please don't click and paste and send it, and make it look like the assembly has actually already signed it, because then I'll look like a schmuck. So, but you should feel free to read it and steal points from it.
A statement of what do you write? Either pick a specific topic and become knowledgeable about it, or write from the passion standpoint.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, should we delay it?
But do we really want it out there before you get going?
Yeah.
No.
It really frankly doesn't bother me. I think that the likelihood of members of the legislature haunting our website to look for information.
Listen to him, better than you think.
Although people who aren't here might want to click and say, yeah, good point. Good point. I would say that, yeah, we can hold off.
Hold off on
Yeah.
posting it.
It may take, depending on what Mike finds when he gets back to work on Monday, it could be months before it gets posted, because he could find a whole hornet's nest that blew up at work. The same holds true for me when I get back on Monday, so we try to get things up timely, but as you know,
It's not there currently.
it's not there currently, and no. We'll let you work on the final draft and kind of massage things in the background and see how far the next week or 10 days, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, where we get to.
The other thing I would say that if you write a letter and you send us a copy, but you don't want it posted on the website, please indicate that.
You want your name taken out?
Take the name out or whatever.
Put a piece of tape over it when you send us a copy, because we have to turn it from paper copy to electronic by one means or another.
Okay,
Well, I'd like to, I think all of us should give a round of applause to all of the people on the board, Rolf and Keith and everybody else who's been working on this, and Cole. We appreciate your efforts, and hopefully the part we can do can help with that. And hopefully Bartlett can help us too. So, thank you very much.
you're welcome. Appreciate that very much, Jerry, and everyone else. Moving forward to Jack's sign campaign, the unofficial sign fairy.
I've gone through, you see the signs already, a lot of those people I've talked to and got permission. We have signs here. Take them, put them in front of your yard. I've got a couple signs in Glens Falls. I got a couple signs going up to, I'm doing all my friends, relatives, everybody, hoping that somebody might happen to drive by, because we missed the governor once. Might just happen to drive by and ask the question, stop APA, what? And at least start to get this ball rolling. We originally wanted to do all of 74, but I haven't got past Corduroy Road yet. Eventually will. My wife was downtown. She's got some of the stores downtown were very helpful in putting them up. I know there was one, she said somebody took off to Crown Point. One of the people that took it said, what is this? They know nothing about it. So there's a lot of people in this area that fish, they use the lake. They're going to pull up one day and find it closed and wonder what happened. And so that's where the signs are coming in, the letters and everything else, to try to get everybody, if you want to keep it open, we got to tell the government, remember, this is America. The government works for us. We don't work for it. And unless we put up a fight, they're going to roll right over us. Maybe we won't win, but we'll give them a hell of a battle. They won't come back and try to do something else. Let's try to stay away. So anyways, there's signs here. If we need more signs or want more signs, make them bigger. The original signs, Dave found a place in Glens Falls, 100 signs were $1,600. And so I found a place online. Unfortunately, I couldn't do business locally. It's a lot of money. I got these signs. They are what they are. And there's $900 right there in signs. So again, like we've talked, even with the radar sign, you've got to put your money, you got so much money, and you've got to dole it out somehow. And you pick the best way. These are not the best signs in the world, but I have noticed that at least the red part, what's the APA doing? And we're hoping it'll draw enough attention that people actually stop and think it's a garage sale someplace.
Yeah.
the signs are here. Take all you want and just give them out to your neighbors, give them out to your friends, Christmas gifts, whatever, stocking stuffers. And if we can get more of them around so people will start asking questions, you know, that's, the government's supposed to work for us, and if everybody talks, then maybe they'll do it.
There's already one in the window at Napa, or what do you call that?
No, that's the sports place, Tony's Sports Place.
No, the Napa Auto Parts by Dollar Store.
Oh, did you get the one there?
Yeah.
Oh, Advanced Auto Parts.
What is it?
Advanced Auto Parts, yes.
I went in and he said, well, tape it right to my window. And so I did that. The guy at Tony's Motorsports said, yeah, put one in each of my driveways and put it down by my car wash. And that's where George Silva, who I don't know, was standing at the counter at Tony's, and he said, what is this all about? He said, I'm from Crown Point, and he's a friend of Tom Beecher, wherever. Where are you, Tom? Here. But yeah, he said, yeah, I know Tom, and I don't think he knows about this yet. He just bought property on Eagle Lake. And I'm like, he will. So he very willingly took a sign and was going to talk to his neighbors and so on that fish. I just asked Chris if maybe we could take some postcards and put them down at the boat wash station. Although that's manned by the APA, isn't it? Or DEC?
DEC.
Oh, they might not like
Officially
that.
manned by college, sometimes college.
College kids, yeah.
Also, yeah.
Paul Smith's, yeah.
Yeah, at the boat wash station.
They're part of the Adirondack Watershed through Paul Smith College. Graduate from Paul Smith?
So, well, our son is.
Yeah.
Is that's private property? Who owns that property?
I have no idea who owns the property there.
Okay.
I don't know what the arrangements are to
Yeah,
get that.
you have to ask first, but,
Typically, the watershed, the boat wash stewards are part of the Adirondack Watershed, which is part of Paul Smith's. It's manned through there.
so they might,
Whatever.
yeah, so they might let us put up some signs. Yeah.
One other quick thing about this picture, Garnet Lake, this launch, I called the people at Garnet Lake, the person that, president, I think I spoke with, they essentially asked to have this barrier put in because their launch was being overused. They had too many jet skis in there, too many day-use boater people. They contacted DEC and they said, oh yeah, your lake doesn't qualify for a launch. We'll make it kayak or carry-in only. So it's obviously a very different situation than we're in. She also told me that the key here for it is with the fire department. And apparently, if you need to get in the launch, you can call the guy from the fire department and get in. So, and also this lake has numerous other launch sites. Like 50 to 70% of people have their own launch site right at their own house. So, it's just a very different situation than we have. So.
If you read the letter from, the response letter from the APA, they said they're doing this on several other lakes within the Adirondack Park. I've asked the question, what are the lakes? And I get nothing. So, where they're coming from, I have no idea. The same thing when they did the boat launch or the boat carrying capacity study, we asked numerous times at our February 1st meeting with the APA, where's the data, where's the data? Well, it really didn't bear on a decision. So give some consideration as to what you're dealing with if you're dealing with the APA. Many of the state officials that I've talked to up here, our town governor, Crown Point governor, supervisors, excuse me, Essex County, or town of Essex, several of them, none of them have a real love for the APA. They are all looking at that and going, what's the next shoe that's going to fall as far as closure or changes that they don't agree with. So,
What are the reasons?
for Eagle Lake specifically?
No, what are the reasons they're doing it?
Because it's under
We
1,000.
got many?
For Eagle Lake specifically, when they met with us on February 1st, when we were summoned, if you will, their comment was there'll be less traffic on the lake, which is true, but it's not like people are not still going to be able to launch their boat. There are enough private launches where people currently put in boats that don't fit under the causeway. So to be quieter, yes, there will be a little bit less boat traffic in the westernmost basin, but by and large, it's not going to stop me from putting my boat in the water. Probably won't stop Chris, because I'm gonna let him in use the primitive launch that I have, and there are other people in Taipei that have launches. So that was reason number one that they spoke about. Reason number two was that it will limit the amount of invasives that are brought into the lake. We've already got one, we've probably got two, that maybe even three, and they did nothing to help us with the invasive that we have. And their thinking is that the power boating trade is the dirty ones. They're the ones that are going to bring the next invasive. The kayaks hold water, they hold plant matter just as much as a power boat does. And it's probably not going to be the intelligent person that's running a kayak anymore, or the person that is running their power boat. It's going to be the innocent little kid that says, Mommy, Mommy, can I take this with me? Because I found a neat rock. They want to keep it wet, they take it to the next lake.
Excuse me, Ralph, wasn't the answer to his question, their lake is less than 1,000 acres?
Well,
Yes.
that was,
Nothing else
Yeah.
matters.
that was the other part of it.
State land master plan says a lake with less than 1,000 acres can't have a launch.
That's the reason.
That's the reason.
Yeah.
There was no study done, nothing. We
There was-
asked
there
what
was-
we could do to address it, was to make the lake 2.5 times bigger.
Yeah,
And
and
she laughed about that. So just to, not that I'm disagreeing with you, Ralph, but just to.
Yeah, the bottom line was it's under 1,000 acres, which
Yeah.
we've heard, you know, but then they throw out, it's going to be quieter, it'll improve the loon nesting area, because there won't be any weight disturbing the loon nesting. It- You know, you look at the historical use, we have noon images of cameras for the boat usage, and even the APA, when we finally got their study results for carrying capacity, there were 2 boats in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 2 in the evening. If you look at the Office of Parks and Recreation's studies of how many acres you need per boat, they go anywhere between 8 acres or 10 acres per boat. Do the arithmetic, that gives us anywhere between 40 and 50 boats on either lake, all at the same time, operating and not necessarily exceeding a capacity. If you look at some of the follow-up studies to that, they have modified those numbers a little bit and said, well, maybe 8 to 10 is not really realistic. Maybe we ought to do 12 acres per boat. So we're
But
still...
just to keep the focus, so it's clear to everybody, they were very clear, they didn't do any study.
Right.
There was no reason for this other than less than 1,000 acres. They didn't identify any problems, they're not addressing any issue, it's less than 1,000 acres, no launch.
They're enforcing the plan.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
As regulated.
They're bringing us into compliance.
Five now, now 70.
Right, yeah, that's exactly right.
We at least got an hour of their time for our meeting, from what I was told from Mark Wright and Jim Monty, Essex County Board of Supervisors. They got about 15 minutes, and they told them it's closed, that's the end of the discussion. We talked to the property owners, they say it's okay, and life goes on. Like, Cole kind of framed it nicely when he wrote that the minutes that the APA provided, we asked at the February meeting, would the APA take accurate notes and share them with us so that we as officers didn't need to scribble everything down? When we got their rendition of the minutes, they might as well have been at a different meeting than us. There was not a word one, not a mention one of any of the concerns that we had for people with, disabilities. We don't care. Chris framed it nicely. He said,
he's gonna
"I
mention
can't
it."
put my daughter in a kayak. It doesn't work, for disabilities. And how many other people do we have as we age that can't necessarily get in a kayak or can't get into a canoe or something like that? Doesn't work. So the short answer is they really could care less what we are saying we want to do or anything like that. They've got their blinders on, that's the way they're going. If you get a chance and you look at the presentation that Megan made at the February APA meeting, within 3 minutes, she trashed the whole thing. She got up and said, it's done deal, it's under 1,000 acres, carrying capacity, who cares? And that was the end of it. She did not inform any of the people that she is responsible to of anything what was going on. So,
I make a motion, we move on.
Okay, I think we've got one more thing on here. Where did
She
we go?
just went to do the food.
Oh.
Debbie started a fundraiser, Adirondack, Cole, it's got the, wait a minute, it's right here. It's in Glens Falls, Adirondack etching. And there's a code, And you can get cups with Eagle Lake on it. Got all kinds of stuff if you want. These things you hang on the Christmas tree or in the window. And I know I'm not doing this justice, but there's all kinds of stuff. And I think we're going to put it on the web page. And if you want to get stuff, you have to sell, I think she said 50. Then anything over the 50, we get a percentage, or there's a code that you have to, for us to get the percentage, there's a code that you have to type in or mention Eagle Lake that you're a member or you're buying it to help Eagle Lake. But there's all kinds, Cole swears by these. There's all kinds of stuff. He's got a place, it's the old shirt factory in Glens Falls on Lawrence Street. They've got a lot of small shops in there that make all kinds of stuff, but he's on the second floor. Awful nice guy. He's got all kinds of stuff for all the lakes in the area. We happened to ask him about Eagle Lake. This was at Christmas. And he said, oh, yeah, I got Eagle Lake. We didn't even think he had it, but he did. You got it how many years ago? So, a couple years. So he's been around. But anyways, I think it was in the newsletter, the 18-page, or it may have missed it, and so we haven't got a lot in there yet because it just hasn't got the information out. But anyways, that's part of it, and go from there.
Okay. All righty, that covers pretty much the entire agenda. The last item I have here is for the 2024 annual meeting. The target dates would either be the 6th or the 13th. The 6th would bring it into the holiday weekend, or we could do it like we did this year and do it the weekend after that. Any preferences or thoughts on that? I have to check with the fire department, of course, but generally those 2 weekends are available. Or keep it as it is. Do it on the 13th. Okay. All right, we'll aim for the 13th then. Yep. Okay. All right, unless anybody has any other questions? Anything else? Motion to adjourn? Seconded? All in favor? Okay, appreciate everybody coming, and let's enjoy a picnic.